Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. Today, we get to speak with one of my favorite guests. I've had him on 2 times before, and I think the best thing that you can say about a podcaster is that I respect their work, and their work makes me want to be friends with them. This man knows pretty much everything about every topic. He's an award-winning podcast host, a producer, and a storyteller, best known for his critically acclaimed podcast, Wait For It, which just finished its 2nd season a while back. It's award-winning, but also we've had him on talking about Pop Culture Debate Club. He's been a part of NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour, and I think he is going to continue to do huge things. Now, our topic today is there is a Netflix docuseries that just came out called Fit for TV, The Reality of the Biggest Loser, a 3-part docuseries. So please welcome back to the show, Ronald Young Jr. Ronald, what's up?
Hello, Mr. Ryan Bailey. Thank you so much for the kind words. I want to be friends with you too. I feel like I see us continuously passing each other up threads. We're holding up threads single-handedly.
By the way, that's how I found out, because he was talking about this docuseries on Threads, you guys, because I'm not on Twitter anymore, because listen, I don't care if you are on Twitter, it just doesn't make me feel good anymore, and who knows, maybe I'll come back. But Threads is like a nice place, but he was talking about this docuseries, and I was watching it at the exact time he was threading about it, and then we went back and forth, and he said he would be down to talk about it, so I was like, hell yes. But it also, I mean, this docuseries brings up so many things and emotions for me, because I've struggled with my weight and my body image my entire life. And Ronald, I think it's the same for you in some ways, correct?
Yeah. So there's first of all, thank you for having me, because I invited myself onto your show for this.
Dude, by the way, I need that, because I'm so weird about, like, I get nervous. I'm like, I don't want to bother this person. So I was like, if you're offering, this is public, this holds up in court on Threads.
Yeah, I love it. So yes, I mean, obviously I have the podcast Wait For It, WEIGHT, and I'm talking a lot about body image. And I've, like, myself have been struggling and thinking about my weight most of my life. So I was a person, The Biggest Loser, most people that watch it are people that were watching it while sitting on the couch eating, right? And then feeling like, oh, I should get up and go do something, is typically what it is. And that was how I came to watch the show in the early aughts. But, like, it's funny, because since it's been canceled, and now that I watched it, recently, it's 2025 now, it feels like I've changed so much, and my relationship with the show has changed so much. But I don't know if the docuseries has changed as much as the world has changed, if that makes sense. So when they're talking about it, I don't know if they learned all the right lessons, but I know we're going to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point that you bring up, is that I watched all 3 parts, and I don't know necessarily what the stance of the docuseries was in some ways. Now, The Biggest Loser premiered on NBC on October 19th, 2004, you guys. So like he said, early aughts, we've had 21 years. And thinking about The Biggest Loser now, which I did watch, and I am always like, oh, wow, I love to see a transformation, even if it's a house, even if it's and body is such an extreme thing, because these are actual people. And I remember a younger man, myself, watching this going, wow, this is pretty insane. And knowing that this is probably way too extreme to lose weight in this fashion. But like a lot of things in pop culture, I think we turn a blind eye, because you're just like, well, if it's on TV, it must be completely on the up and up, even though we've never known that to be true.
Yeah, you nailed it. Like, there's an assumption that we have that we are watching something that's been thoroughly vetted before it reaches our eyes. And I don't think that's an unfair assumption in the early aughts. I think today it is no longer a fair assumption. And especially knowing, and you're a reality TV guy, like, the NDAs and everything has changed since the early days of reality television versus now. And it's funny, because, I mean, like, we're talking about The Biggest Loser. Do you remember that show that came out around the same time called The Swan?
Yes. I mean, The Swan, there was just a great docuseries I forgot, I think maybe it was Vice or something that was talking about the Swan, where they were like, hey, ugly women, we will make you beautiful. And they were giving them extreme plastic surgery, weight loss, not a lot of psychological evaluation, but they were doing it. And it lasted for 2 seasons. And you think, oh my God, in retrospect, how did this get made? And yet it did get made. The first season was a success. And then the second season completely fell off. And there was like slight rumblings, but nothing to the degree that it should have been.
No, not at all. Like, it's funny now to think about that show and think about how was it possible for that show to exist. Even then, I think I was too squeamish to watch it because I don't like plastic surgery. And better yet, it's not that I don't like it. I don't like watching plastic surgery. And there were a lot of shows back then that where people were getting plastic surgery and they were showing them getting the surgery, and like the bruising and all that stuff. Really, it makes me, I'm just too squeamish for it, man. It's hard for me to even watch a horror movie in those cases. So I didn't watch it like all the time, but I remember seeing the previews and being like, this is kind of wild to say, like, we're going to turn these ducklings into swans. I'm like, what is the commentary we're talking about at this point?
Well, I mean, it's all about commentary, because even when you think about The Biggest Loser, it's like, we are going to make you better. And then that's obviously saying that and this docuseries admits that, like, we are taking larger people that are unhappy. Not larger people that are happy, larger people that are unhappy.
And they said that. Yes. They used those words.
That was such an important distinction, because you are then associating negative feelings about yourself to actually be the entrance point for the show. And so you're almost like The Biggest Loser. You could say, oh, that's a title about losing weight. But in a sense, they're saying these are a bunch of losers that we are helping become winners because of their bodies.
Yes, it's the show itself. And we're getting into the docuseries, but the show itself is already positing that you are in a negative place and we are going to make you better. And it's also positing that you are in a negative place because of your weight, which is something that, and we're not just talking about folks, them being diabetic or them having, sleep apnea or anything else that comes like with what people call obesity related diseases, or I'm sorry, with what people call obesity related illnesses. I feel like that wasn't as big of a deal for them as much as the idea that they could give these transformations to folks who were unhappy with their lives. It was really about the losing the weight and like, look at what they look like before and look at what they look like now. And you realize they're hammering that point over and over, but they're using the guise of health to say, we're saving lives. And I think that's when I really started to feel like, as the producers are sitting there flat-footed, standing on business, doubling down on saying they're saving lives, I'm like, this is a reality show, man. Like, what are we talking about here?
It's wild. This was produced by 4 gentlemen, but Dave Broom and J.D. Roth are both in the docuseries. And Dave Broom, especially, there's one part of the docuseries where he said, and the other thing is, like, this is about Hollywood. This is about other people making their careers. And he seems like he's searching for a show. And one day he's at gym and he goes out and there's a bulletin board. And I believe like the sign was from a gentleman said, I need help changing my life. I'm overweight. I'm this and that. And instead of, a good Samaritan would be like, I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to train with this guy and try to help him. He's like, there's a show. That's a show.
Yeah. It's very predatory. Like that it's opportunist in a very predatory way, I would say, especially when we get into the details about what they're doing on the show. But like, there's for you to say that, coupled with also saying we were looking for people who were fat and unhappy, it means you were looking for an opportunity in that case, not to change them, but to make good television. That comes up over and over again to say, us yelling at them, that's good television. Them losing big numbers, that's good television. But at some point you have to say, at what cost? And no, there's only one person who was really saying at what cost, and that was Dr. Huizenga. But everybody else was just, pedal to the metal,
Yeah, and Dr. Hazanga, who was the doctor on The Biggest Loser, he actually participates in this. But there is a lot of murkiness, which we'll go into later because Jillian Michaels, our favorite, Jillian
Yeah.
Michaels,
Yeah.
is
Number
prepping a
one.
lawsuit that came out today. There was a big press release and saying that Dr. Hazanga was in on it too in regards to caffeine pills. But basically, when they were coming up with this show, I mean, I think any doctor or nutritionist or anybody that you work with in trying to change anything, you know, the the most that you should be losing weight in a given week, like in a healthy way, is a pound to a pound and a half. From what I've been told from my own like doctors or nutritionists, is a pound and a half. And these are people trying to do a show on a limited time, and they want those big numbers. So when they step on the scale for the live show of The Biggest Loser, because I remember even watching it going, oh no, only 7 pounds this week instead of, 18.
Yes. Yes, I did the same thing. Like you're nailing it because I remember like now I feel like a jerk because I'd watch it and I'd be like 6 pounds. He didn't do no work at all, and that's because it wasn't double digits. You know what I mean? Which I'm like, that's so unreasonable, man.
Well, because it's insane. And I think like I'm coming to this as an older man now and realizing that all of our bodies are different. All of our metabolisms are different. And all of these things, like not one route is going to work for everybody. And so you have the conceit of the show is that then they have trainers, and the trainer that's involved in the docuseries is Bob Harper, who you guys might know from the most recent season of The Traitors, but he was the main dude, but
where he could barely do a physical challenge, Ryan. Don't forget that.
Well, I mean, it comes out in the third part, what a horrific, like heart disease that he had or from a genetic disorder or genetic disposition. So you had Bob Harper and Jillian Michaels were the trainers, and these are all people that want to be part of the industry, they want to be on camera and do what it takes. And I mean, do you remember your relationship with the trainers when watching these shows?
I remember, okay, so I'll tell you. So I remember watching it, and I remember I didn't start watching The Biggest Loser until Jillian came. She had gone and she came back with the black team. I remember, and they were like training in a different facility, and they came back. They're like, "Oh, Jillian Michaels is back," because I think she had left the show for like one season. So I remember she came back, and I remember thinking this woman is very mean. And I'm like, well, Bob is supposed to be the nice one, but I actually really like when Dolvet Quince showed up. That's when I really started to enjoy the show more, or enjoy the trainers more, because I felt like Dolvet in a lot of ways behaved like an actual trainer. But I noticed that Dolvet is like barely mentioned, if at all, in this docuseries,
not
which
at all,
feels
really.
intentional in a very specific way. I'm sure he's like, do not bring me in this at all. I don't want to do this. I don't care if that chapter of my life is over. That's what it felt like. But like, he was my favorite. Bob obviously seemed okay, but Jillian was always like, I think she's being too mean, and she's asking unreasonable things of these people.
Well, it is interesting to think about now because I don't think Bob comes off well in this docuseries.
Oh, no.
And I'm trying to be kind here, but like he does not come off well. And there is almost this flippant way that Bob has in speaking about these people, and especially one woman who we will talk about that especially we get her story, Joelle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Joelle pretty much at one point gets to do a talking head and just like, fuck you, Bob Harper.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very powerful, but we saw him coaching Joelle, and it was almost like Bob was picking on Joelle.
Yeah, okay. So just quick story. I used to work with a personal trainer, and I remember the one thing that I noted about him was I don't think he had ever worked with a fat person before. And I feel like there's this tendency of personal trainers to assume that if a fat person can't do an exercise or is getting tired, it is because they are being lazy, which I think is a dangerous assumption to make if you have never been fat or if you have never worked with fat people before, because your exercises need to be different, you need to add modifications, all of that. And so I feel like what happened a lot on this show, and this was a perfect example, was that these trainers were demanding stuff out of people who were physically unable to do the things that they were being asked to do. But when they somehow miraculously did it after the 18th or 19th time, they would get this this kind of like self confirm, it'd be confirmation bias. Basically, they would
Yeah.
say, "Oh, well, you were able to do it, which means you were able to do it." And the only other time I've seen this is if you think about like if anyone has ever pledged a fraternity, there's always like you got young people that are telling a little slightly other young people what they can and cannot do with no real adult supervision, saying maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe it's not possible. And when there's any hesitation and they're like, "Oh, I can't do this," or "I'm physically unable," it's like, "Yes, you can." And then the confirmation bias comes, because then when they ask you to do an even crazier thing, you're going to try it because you just did the other thing, as opposed to just saying like, "Hey, like you said, 1.5 pounds a week, get on the treadmill, speed it up." But yes, it felt like he was absolutely picking on her, and watching it again, like, didn't really help me. You know what I mean? I remember when
No,
it
I
happened
felt like
live.
I mean, I always liked Bob. I thought Bob was one of like, well, he's okay. He seems okay.
Yeah, he's tough
Jillian
but fair.
scared me.
Yeah,
Jillian scared me. It seemed like there were enough like, somewhat caring moments that I saw from Bob, if I remember correctly. We are talking about our friends over at Factor today. Now, if you've been listening to the pod, you know that I am on a health journey right now, which means I am trying to eat healthier. And that is really hard, to go out shopping and to do all of that busy work. And, you have a busy schedule, you have summer plans, and sometimes all you got is a couple minutes. So Factor helps me eat smarter with tasty chef prepped meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to my door. And now, with more than 65 weekly meals made for how I live and what I like to eat, I've got even more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes me. So you get more variety, you get more meals. You can go to the website, you can choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. They support all of your wellness goals. Enjoy even more GLP-1 friendly meals and now new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. And savor global favors. For the first time, try Asian inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. From more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference no matter your routine. So eat smart at factormeals.com/SoBad50off and use code SoBad50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Whoa! That's code SoBad50off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase.
yeah,
But the Joelle, it's very interesting too, because we are seeing a lot of these contestants, decades later. And
yes,
Joelle is somebody that she is very thin in her
yeah,
talking heads. And,
yeah.
you see her when she was on The Biggest Loser and looks like a completely different person. But that fuck you, Bob Harper, to me, there was such a story in her voice, in how she said it. Like, God, it
Yeah.
would just, I felt the pain, and like somebody that had like 1,000-yard stare or had seen a ghost.
Yeah. You know what the good thing is though too? I'm imagining that because of where The Biggest Loser was positioned, where it was on the internet at the time, like a lot of people who were in reality television shows weren't subject to widespread hate in the way they are today. Like there's whole platforms that are dedicated to going after people. And I can imagine that whatever version of that was in those days, because they really villainized Joelle when that show was on, making her seem like she was lazy and not doing what the easy thing that Bob was asking her to do. So, and the same thing happened with Tracy, where you have all of this hate coming from people who are like sending emails or posting on message boards. And I imagine for someone who's on reality TV, when you get wind of that, you're like, oh my God, everybody hates me. It's a different time. I can only imagine what it would be like Ryan, think about that right now for them to be on Twitter doing that.
I mean, imagine hating your body already and then getting hate for how you participate in a show about losing that weight. I feel like it would exacerbate, if not cause, a million new problems in your mind. And that's the stuff that it's like that pre-internet, not that it was a sweet spot, but it was a different time where you're like, yeah, this show, you would have had people coming after the show, obviously, saying it's unhealthy, which it was. And then on the other side, you would have had people that love the show and saying, oh, stop being woke. Oh, let these people lose. And then you would have had the people going, screw all of these people. They're horrific. They're ugly. They don't deserve a show like that's the conversation that we would have been having today would have been so much more a part of it. So thank God maybe that show can exist today. But doesn't it scare you after watching this of like, oh no, they're probably going to bring this back, aren't they?
I do not think they will. I hope that they don't. I do not think they will. Especially because like the little like button that they put at the end, it was like, what would that show be today? And they just, would it be every week people injecting themselves with a GLP-1? And I'm like, okay, yeah, probably. But I'm like, would you want to watch that? Would you like, that's the drama, and all of it came out from like watching them on the marathon, watching them on the treadmill, watching them with balloons attached to them, and then watching them walk up to the scale, because it was the work that they put in that made the show work. If there's no like effort in that way, I can imagine this being like a totally different show. And I feel like we have enough shows on television in which people are like reality stars are admitting to being on Ozempic, which essentially is now that is the biggest loser now. You know what I mean? In that case,
but Ronald, it scares me though, because you say all of that stuff and the outrage would be so insane, and all of that is true. But I feel like more things are being made too outrageous now more than ever. So it's like,
that's true.
We'll rage bait you, man. We'll rage bait you all the way to the bank. And sometimes like, I feel like that doesn't matter as long as we're talking about it. So the docuseries points out a lot of things. So there was calorie restriction and there was overtraining. So, many contestants were surviving on as little as 800 calories per day while training up to 8 hours a day. And this was, they got to have a respite from their actual lives. So that's the other part that they focus on is after The Biggest Loser, there's no aftercare. There's no psychological aftercare, or how do you actually institute this into your real life? So not that this is a vacation, because it was horrific for them, but they had 24 hours a day to focus on one thing. And life is not like that.
Yeah, it's funny because when the time the show was on, I used to talk to my buddy Jeb, who watched it. It's funny because we both watched the docuseries at the same time, like old times, because we used to watch the show live and text each other back and forth. Now we were watching the docuseries, and me and him remembered a conversation we had like 15 years ago, where basically I said, I was like, Jeb, I feel like this show would be better if they would just send the trainers out to wherever they live and like train with them when they're not working or taking care of their kids, so they can show them how to adapt it to their actual lives. And I was like, they wouldn't lose as much weight. And then I remember Jeb said, was like, I don't know, who really wants to watch a show where they're just kind of like working out and then like, living the rest of their life, which is funny. Cause I'm like thinking that, I was like, I'd watch that right now. I'd watch that show.
I mean, you say that, I was like, I actually would probably be into that. And you could actually have a reality show element of their actual life and trying to, because I mean, I got to tell you, I had some heart issues in the last year and a half, and it was so funny going to the doctor. Going to the heart doctor, they were like, "We'll put you on amlodipine, we'll put you on this, we'll put you on that," and I remember going, well, is there any kind of like, do you think diet or exercise? And they're like, no, we'll just put you on all this medicine. And I was like, okay. And then I actually did consult with a nutritionist, and I'm with a trainer right now. And it's not a Biggest Loser trainer or anything, you know. And I will say, I've started to lose some weight in a healthy way, even though that wasn't the overall goal. And it didn't take away everything, obviously, but it's made it so much better. Like I was having breathing disturbances at night. I mean, the stress level from podcasting alone, you guys, is insane. I'm half joking there. Half joking. But I will say It's very interesting, though, even from like a doctor standpoint of like they are looking for sometimes the quick and the easiest fix. Just like in The Biggest Loser, when they're talking about doing the show, you guys, they're like, okay, well, you can lose this much through diet, but if you add extreme exercise onto it,
Yep.
that's a bigger weight loss. And then they're like, and that's a better show. And so they're putting this game show element. And I don't know. I mean, did you get the sense that any of them ever had this real heart to heart of like, these are human beings and lives really could be lost at a certain point? There could be really deep health impact.
The closest we got to that was Dr. Hazanga and Tracy getting rhabdo. That was probably the closest because Tracy, one of the contestants, she was on season 8, ran a mile and she ran it too fast. And it was in the first episode. So they took these folks out of their sequestered hotel rooms, took them to a beach and said, run a mile. And if you don't make it, you're not on the show type situation. So they're running. She takes off because she wants to be on the show. She gets rhabdo, which is basically when I believe your liver releases things into your bloodstreams and essentially it begins to poison you, essentially. You can Google it. But she is severely injured. So they have to take her to the hospital, and Dr. Hazanga sits with her, and he got choked up doing his talking head where he was like, I wonder if I did the right thing, essentially by encouraging her to stay on the show. And I feel like those were the only breaks where you say, were like the humanity of the contestants, what became like a question or some sort of like conversation. That was the closest I ever saw to it. Everyone else seemed to walk right up to accountability and then kind of slide back a little bit, be like, well, you know, we were helping them, like it did change their lives, or and it that was troubling because that was probably that. And Dr. Hazanga talking about him going back and forth, like you said, talking about the caloric deficit and saying y'all actually need to be eating more so you have energy to work out and not less. Like this isn't going to work the way that we have this set up. Those were the only times that I saw like bursts of them saying, oh, let's actually talk about these people as humans and not as just, you know, props in our reality program.
Well, the female contestant you're speaking about, you know, they're doing the speech challenge to be able to like run a mile and then you can be on the show, but they're filming this, right?
Yeah.
And so in many ways, this is such a dramatic race of people that are like, how much do you want to change your life? Because they already are saying, we are losers. We feel like we can't be stuck in the bodies that we're stuck in. And so if you think about it from that lens, you're like, this is the most traumatic mile these people have gone through. And she literally almost dies, like you said. She has like sand in her fingernails when she wakes up in the hospital and they say, well, what do you want to do? And she goes back to the show.
She goes back to the show and she's
hooked up to tubes.
Yeah. And the funny part about it is the trainers are getting at her because she's on a doctor's restriction from working out. But I remember that season, Ryan, she was still losing weight every week. And I remember she'd get on the scale, she'd be like, oh, 4 pounds, 3 pounds. And I'm like, yo, losing 4 to 3 pounds a week for anybody that was trying to lose weight, like at the house would be like, oh my God, 4 pounds. Oh my God, 3 pounds.
But the trainers looked disappointed.
Every single time they looked disappointed, and it was because they were upset that she wasn't working hard enough to be there, which I'm like, bro, that is sadistic. That is what y'all are doing is sadistic.
But it's like, can we take it easy on the girl that almost died on the first episode?
Yeah. And according to her, she said, I closed my eyes and I saw my grandfather. I'm like, hey, yo, that's what?
Yeah. I mean, like, that's what, like, you have to laugh because it's so insane in some ways.
Yes.
And then they're talking about this. And like we said earlier, is don't fool yourself. They sold advertising. This was about money at the end of the day.
It was not altruism.
This was a successful show. I mean, I seem to remember like Allison Sweeney, one of the hosts. I remember when she went on The Biggest Loser. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Wait, what? She did? Wait, what?
I believe, if I'm not having a fever dream, there was a season where Allison Sweeney had to participate because she had gained weight.
Whoa.
Maybe I just to completely imagine that. The time does weird things. Anyways, there's a couple of people that they do focus on. One of those is season 8 winner Danny Cahill. lost nearly 240 pounds, but then obviously in the years since, and when we see him now, regained almost all of it due to that metabolism deficit that he was going through. But this is a man that I think from the docuseries I think he said he auditioned 4 times or put himself on tape 4 times.
Yeah.
And his son had never seen him not be a larger man, but like 240 pounds from 430 or something. That's insane.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about Danny. I remember looking at Danny on this documentary and seeing him sitting there, and he is fat, and he has an orange shirt on. Yes, Brian. Yes, I was going to say he looked great. And I think I was like, this bothers me. No one's going to say, hey, man, like fat doesn't mean dead or bad or unattractive. This guy looks great. But the one thing I wish they would have done, I wish they would have talked to his wife or included, if they did talk to his wife, included
talk to his son.
Talk to his son. Yes. Because I'm like, I just want to hear, hey, man, what do you think about your dad? Are you proud of your father? Do you care what he looked like? Does this matter? Because like they're talking to kids when they're like 7 or 8 and being like, oh, mommy, I don't want you to be fat, or daddy, I don't want you to be fat. I want you to talk to them when they're 28 and ask them if they feel the same way. At some point, they're going to be like, honestly, I was a kid. Like there was a very binary when it came to fat or thin or what I thought about it. And the show already existed. So yeah, of course I want my parents to be thin, but like now that I'm 28, I just want my parents to be alive. Like it doesn't really matter like what state they're in, you know what I mean? And you, like Ryan, like me and you have suffered the same loss. So at some point you're not concerned about like what they look like. You just want them to be with you. And I wish that would have humanized the docuseries a little bit more to think about that relationship.
You are so dead on with that, is that it would have filled out so many things, because it's not only this physical, but really overall it's the psychological, it's these people of what gets them there. The first season, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but he did a video where he said, I'm a secret eater. And he's like, I'm in front of a donut shop. He's filmed himself in front of a donut shop. He's lying to, I think his wife or his girlfriend, his wife, he's like, I'm here like 3 times a day or something like where he's just eating. And he goes on the show, and he's another one where by the end, you guys, there was blood in his urine because he was so dehydrated. And by the end, he was just doing the cayenne pepper, lemon water, Beyonce, the master cleanse. Yeah. Doing that. And, you see him and he's thin, but like, we don't know then what's the actual reality of the reality that we're seeing, where it's insane what he's going through and what he's putting his body through.
Yeah. It was like knowing that like the massive caloric deficit, the amount that they were burning per day, they're burning 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day, which should be an exception for anyone. Like, oh man, we did a lot of walking today. I burned a lot of calories. That should not be the norm for anyone burning that much a day every day. Like your body doesn't want to do that. It's going to fight you on that. And like, I feel like the blood and the urine and all that is like the types of warnings that you get to say, hey, don't do this anymore. And they're ignoring those warnings like constantly. Like when you said by the end he's on the master cleanse, like, and that wasn't even the one that the worst one was the one that basically canceled the show, was when that young lady came out there and she had lost so much weight that Bob and Jillian were both like, oh, it's too much weight.
When you have Bob and Jillian saying we've gone too far, that is, their faces, that's how they start the show, you guys. It's like a look of shock when it gets to the trainers, because she comes out and there's some sort of like VR image of what she used to look like to what she is now. Yeah. And there is this vibe of like, oh, this isn't, it's like you can tell the look isn't right. And at the same time, this was the conceit of the show. Wait for it. Your podcast in the first season, like, were there any, you're telling a personal story, but like, was there a destination in mind throughout the course of your first season?
It's probably the same destination that I have now, which is just to normalize the conversations that we're having about our bodies, because generally I think that all of us are thinking about our bodies a lot, and specifically we're being forced to think about our weight in a very specific way over and over again. And I just kind of wanted to open up and talk about the ways in which I felt like I was waiting to lose weight before I actually lived a full life. And like some of that is caught up in like the ethos of the show, The Biggest Loser, because it's like they're basically like, you're trapped in this body and you have to change. And that was something that I thought for a long time. And I finally got to a place like now, and I'm on a journey, man. Like I'll be on a journey the rest of my life.
Yeah,
And I
me
feel
too.
like I feel better about where I am with my body. I'm the biggest I've ever been, but I still feel better about my body than when I was at my smallest right now, because, and maybe it's because I have more experience living. Maybe it's because like I know where I'm going. I know what I'm adjusting. Like I can't pinpoint the reason, but in the show, it's just me grappling with that reality
Yeah.
over and over again. Yeah.
I remember, I mean, this is why it's such an interesting viewing experience for me, was that I remember my first, where I started to really balloon up was around, end of junior year, beginning of senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And my drama teacher was like, "Hey, we want you to play, Cinderella's Prince in Into the Woods, the musical,
Hmm.
but we need you to lose weight." And I was
Mm,
like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I went on, I think, a very unhealthy diet where,
mm,
um, I'm trying to remember at the time, and there was also back in the day, there was, fen-phen and, Fentamil, like, there was a lot of caffeine pills, which this show talks about as well, but I remember that was, like, the first time where I got stretch marks on my love handles and my belly area, and I was like, "Oh, these are with me now for the rest of these are like my skin tattoos that I
mhm,
have," and I remembered the shame that I had surrounding those. And
mhm.
that, in some ways, has stayed with me for the entirety of my life. And, like, I'm so used to it now, but there is so much like pathos and anger and sadness that is built up into my own personal body and story,
Yeah.
that I think this is so relatable to so many people out there.
Yeah, it's funny, like, they talked about caffeine pills. I took Stacker too. I took Stacker too
Yeah,
when I
explain
was
to people what Stacker, because this is another big a part of the docu-series, you guys, is that there was alleged, like, were these pills and stackers being encouraged by the coaches? Like, who knew what when?
so I think Stacker 2 has ephedrine in it, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of those, like, speed type of things that's in there, and I learned about it because I was watching, the WWE, Raw, and, all of that back then, and they had those commercials all the time, and, you could just purchase it from a store, and back then, and it wasn't because I thought it was fat. I was actually, quite straight size back then. It was because I was lifting weights, and they said, "This will give you more energy to get in there and pump iron." So I was taking it, and I remember I would take it, and I would always have this like weird taste in my mouth when I would take it. And I took it. Yeah, it's weird. And the only reason why I was like, I was wondering, why does my mouth taste like this? What is this? Then I stopped taking it, and I remember like I went to college, and maybe like year somebody's like, "Oh, yo, I got some Stacker 2s. You want one?" I was like, "Oh yeah, we about to work out. I'll have one." I remember I took one, and that familiar taste in my mouth came back. And I remember after that, I was like, "I can't do this. Something weird is going on here." It was a couple years later that they were like, or maybe around then, that they were like, "Do not take this. This is illegal. Do not take speed to lose weight." And this is post fen-phen. And I really think that they were relabeling fen-phen in a lot of ways, or marking down the dosage and putting it in these pills so that people could use it in order to lose weight, or like whatever they were trying to do in those days. So that was my relationship with the caffeine pill. So as soon as I saw it in the docu-series, I was like, man, this is really reminiscent of like a different time for me and for the show, you know?
Yeah, no, um, so basically with The Biggest Loser, there was a 2016 study, you guys, that showed nearly all participants regained their lost weight, and some
Yeah.
ended up heavier,
Yep.
because, like we said, their metabolism slowed dramatically post show. And in some ways, they say it damaged their metabolisms entirely.
Yep.
So for all of this hard work that they put in, they were not able to make this lasting, and for no fault of their own. It wasn't like these people completely fell off the wagon. I mean, maybe some did,
Yeah.
but for every story like we saw with Joelle, who obviously looks like a very different person, we have a lot of Danny's, who Danny looks
Yeah.
completely healthy to me.
Yeah.
He looked like he had great coloring as opposed to the
Yeah.
Danny we saw who lost all that weight.
Yeah.
But that was a big point of it. Do you think, like, who do you think, if at all, were in on like the stackers and the caffeine pills and stuff like that? Because
I mean,
everybody said, no, no, no.
I think it was the producers and the trainers. I think it was
Yeah.
them. I don't think, like, from what I've seen of Dr. Hazanga, I do not think that he would uh, recommend caffeine pills as a way to go rather than having a cup of coffee or like having a limited amount of caffeine or some other delivery method. Why don't you just drink a soda before you start your workouts? Whatever, drink a Diet Cola, whatever you need to do. I think it was the producers and the trainers, and I think it was because they were really just trying to do as much as they could to ramp the show up to the max. That's what I
Yeah.
feel like. I don't think Dr.
Yeah.
Azenga was involved, but also he sued Joel because Joel said something about being given drugs and mentions Dr. Azenga, and he sued her directly and won. So I don't think Jillian, I think she's going to try. I think she's barking up the wrong tree here because I
Well,
think this guy knows,
Well, so this is interesting. So just to speak to Jillian Michaels, who weirdly enough, all of the time she does like to run her mouth. She does not participate in this docuseries, but there is a rebuttal where, so they're saying caffeine supplements were never banned on the show. She asserted that Dr. Robert Hazanga had approved their use and that Barb Harper was aware and even suggested the use of Stacker's Fat Burner, while Michaels preferred using her own brand due to cleaner ingredients and lower caffeine dosage. And a claim that she told a contestant, "You're going to make me a millionaire," was categorically false, which is talked about in the reality show, is that Jillian Michaels said, "You're going to make me a millionaire." Michaels indicated that both she and the contestant were mic'd live, so any such remark would have been recorded, and it wasn't. Executive producer also provided text confirmations that the exchange never occurred. So she is suing, and this is great, you guys, for everybody that listens to this show. She is using Brian Friedman. This guy is everywhere. He is the guy that represented Bethany Frankel in her Reality Reckoning, and also the lawyer that represents Justin Baldoni in the Blake Lively Justin Baldoni lawsuit.
Interesting.
So Jillian Michaels is alleging that Dr. Azenga and Bob Harper were fully aware of everything. And she says that this is wild because we actually live in a time where emails and text messages existed. And so I have proof against you all.
I mean, show me the evidence. I'm happy to be wrong. Even if she's right, if no one hates Jillian Michaels, then I'm good, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't care about anything she says or does, and there's no bad thing that they could have said that she did that I would not believe on that show because of who she still is today. Like, we know what she's capable of saying, we know what she's capable of doing. We've seen her on the show, and I don't know. That's just me. But if it's proven to be that they were all involved, it wouldn't surprise me that much because I don't think there were any real good altruistic people on the show. There is one thing that I do want to point out though. We haven't talked about. Aubrey Gordon is involved in this documentary. Aubrey Gordon, she is a writer. She started the moniker Your Fat Friend, and wrote anonymously for years, then came out of the shadows, wrote a book, What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat, is on a podcast called Maintenance Phase. I've had her on the show. Wait for it. I just wanted to point out that Aubrey Gordon was doing the Lord's work in this docuseries. She's the only one that's kind of saying out loud. They use her as kind of this pushback to any of the ideals that are coming about diet culture, about when it comes to the toxic brand of marching towards weight loss. She is speaking out against that, and to your point, talking about the insanity of the show, the ways in which the show is she's basically hold up, pause. Let me just tell y'all, you're gonna yell at somebody to get on a treadmill, and they're falling off the treadmill. She's talking all about that, it made me feel good that they included her and that she's so heavily seen in the docuseries.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And Maintenance Phase is an excellent podcast.
Yes.
The one of the bizarre segments, though, that I think she refers to was that there was these weird little contests that they would have, and one was to eat high-calorie junk food to win emotional rewards, like a family visit.
Yes.
And you have the host Allison Sweeney and Bob Harper describing these as it was so dumb, but they show it where it's can you eat a piece of pizza if you want to see, they would tempt them with these food, and you see them stepping up, and it's It's like if the horror movie franchise Saw was like, "Do you want to play a game? Eat this
Yes.
pizza." You know,
Yes.
like
Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. I remember she said that, and I remember watching that at the time and being like the justification. If you've ever been away from your family and friends for whatever reason, like if you were away at college or if you just went on a trip and you were with work people and not your people, if you've ever been sequestered from your community, it's tough because you can start to believe the stuff that you're being told by people who don't necessarily care about you as much as your actual community does. And I feel like that's what these folks were in. They were in a situation with people who they really didn't have intimacy or closeness with, who were not looking out for them in the ways that your friends, your family, like even your pets will look out for you in a very specific way. And so that challenge like spoke to that directly. You have these people who don't care about you. That's like, what? Don't eat that slice of pizza. Don't let the temptation get you. And I'm like, I want to see my kids. I want to see my sister. I want to see my dad. Like, yeah, I'm going to eat a slice of pizza. Like, what do we, why are you giving this false equivalency here? Like, that's wild, you know?
it's so, well, and because it's something that will pop potentially on TV. There's no rhyme or reason except that it's a visual thing that also is tacky in retrospect and was tacky at the time as well.
Yes,
but
yes,
like they're doing these things, and I just once again the thing that just kept hitting me, like I said, was that like, man, I knew this was weird back in the day, but you accept that like television is a parent, so parents know what they're talking about. But like there's so many things in pop culture specifically, I do this with Bravo all the time, where like, oh, Erica Jane had a husband, Tom Girardi, that ended up bilking like his clients out of millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. He's in prison now as an old man. And I remember at the time going, I know lawyers are rich, but are they that rich? But I just put it out of my head because I was like, well, there's no way he would be on television so brazenly. And we've seen it time and time again. Jen Shaw in Salt Lake City, or even like Elizabeth Holmes with Theranos. There are all of these people that you're like, well, everybody's like cheering around them. So it seems like that's on the up and up. And it's that's like the biggest Spidey sense, you guys. If you ever feel that, don't ignore it. That's the right feeling usually.
Okay, so let's think about our favorite show, Vanderpump Rules, right? Like there's a show where we're like, surely they're showing us this successful restaurant in LA, that and Pump and Sir, whatever. They're showing us these successful restaurants. Surely this is a great place to eat. Surely, like, this is the hot it space in LA. But then you talk to folks from LA, I don't go there. Or people like, yeah, I went there. None of the people were there. The food wasn't that great.
Oh, I'll do you one better. I don't usually go out anymore. And I went out on Friday night and I was at Tom Tom to meet my friend. And then I went to get my Uber near Sir. Friday night, we're talking 10:30, 11 p.m. Dead as a doornail. Dead as a door. At Sir.
Oh, at Sir.
At
Okay,
Sir.
okay, yeah.
You know, and by the way, they are starting Vanderpump Rules, the reboot again. And I'm like, are you going to admit that there's like really not a lot of business that comes through Sir? Like, by the way, I would respect it so much if they're like, we're trying to fix the business and it was like a business rehab show.
Yes.
But if you're going to pretend that Sir is like this amazing celebrity hotspot hangout, you're already basing something off of a lie, which seems to be even the conceit of The Biggest Loser. You're basing it on this lie because you're preying on the hopes and dreams of people that you have told you are nothing without thin.
Yes. That's it. And I think that's when you said you don't know. I think earlier in this conversation, you said, I don't really know what the docuseries is saying. That's been my whole thing, is like, I don't know what the ethos of this docuseries is, because you're starting off by saying, we picked these people, we wanted them to be unhappy, and then dude saying, we're going to change their life, and we changed a lot of lives. No other shows has ever done that. But when you get to the end and they're asking you about aftercare, take care of us, we're having problems, all of that, they throw their hands up and say, we're just a reality show. We're just the show. So, and I feel like the docuseries doesn't really take them to task on this. It doesn't really like dig into the fact or dig into the idea of saying, why do we feel this way about weight specifically? Why do we feel we are nothing if we're not straight size?
There's not a lot of things about like, you know, growing up as a kid and how they grew up in some ways and these personal stories of what led them. I mean, we have these like kind of minute, like a couple sentences here or there, but you're right. There is a whole story based on like, I mean, I can think of a dozen stories about growing up and my relationship to weight, and everybody has them. Even if like my mom and, you know, Ronald and I, our moms both passed away. way. And season
Yeah.
2 of Wait For It goes into that a little bit on Ronald's journey. But my mom was so thin all her life. And in her last year, because she was on so much medicine and steroids, it packed on so much weight to her.
Yeah.
And this was a woman that was inwardly beautiful, but was
Yeah.
always outwardly beautiful as well. And she wasn't like, a dick about it. She wasn't like, I am hot shit. She was just
Yeah.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
on so much weight. And I remember that last year, she would just be like, I don't even know how to balance myself. And this woman that had taken such pride, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like she was like, looked down on anybody that was, but she had taken such pride in this. And I remember in that final year of like just feeling that was just a double cruel twist of fate to have cancer, but to also have one of the medicines add 60 pounds to your face and to your body. And for her to already be losing her hair and to look in the mirror and like that self-image
Yeah.
that it comes for everybody. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
just, people that are dealing with weight, but people are going to be dealing with this at one point in their lives. And I don't know like, there is no lesson. What do we teach people? How do we tell people it's okay? But at the same time, we want people to be healthy, and there is overeating. There is things that are unhealthy.
Yeah. I think bodily, the way that we do it is we point to body autonomy and say that like health, like there's this shrine that we give to health to say that if you have to be healthy, you got to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you're not worthy. And the truth is, even if people are unhealthy, they are still like worthy of basic human decency and dignity. And I think there's this way that we talk about weight specifically where we're like folks who are out of control and they're diabetic and all that, we look at them as morally reprehensible in a way that is not true just because they are fat. And I feel like and there's a aesthetic reason that we look at people and say this person is they're out of control, their belly sticking out from under their shirt, that's just distasteful, we don't want to see that. And we then tie that to all of the things that could happen if you're overweight and say that's the reason why I want you to change. And I feel like if we could take it out of our head about the way people look, if we could take the aesthetics out of our heads, I think our relationship with people being fat would automatically change. And then you could send them to the doctor and just say, Doc, I can't climb the stairs, and say, well, let's get you some workouts so you can climb the stairs, but you don't need to lose 100 pounds to be able to climb the stairs. We can help you climb the stairs, but it then becomes about losing 100 pounds and no longer about climbing the stairs. And I feel like there's this like dance that we're doing back and forth where we're like, is it aesthetic or is it about health and all that? And I'm like, I think we just have to be honest, love each other as we show up, and then take it from there. Take it one step at a time from there.
I mean, and yes, I completely agree, but we have so many images force fed through us every
Yes.
day,
Yes.
and like that
Yeah.
has never gone away. It wasn't like MTV went out of vogue and all of a sudden we weren't into it. Like, no, we have TikTok now, we have mukbangs, and we have in fact, I was watching mukbangs last night as I fell asleep, like I was trying to
Stop it, Ryan.
well, listen, because I'm trying to eat better, and sometimes it'll be like, I love it because I'm like, oh man, that looks great. And then they eat so much that I'm disgusted. I'm like, oh, stop. And then I lose my appetite, which is horrible on my end. I'm part of the problem.
This for you.
Ronald, I'm part of the problem. I'm being very raw with you guys right now. I am part of the problem.
It. Yeah.
But there's this other factor that I kept thinking about with the contest and the docuseries is time. So we're trying to get the most time. That's the thing, is like, you want to walk up the stairs. That also means I want to live a longer life.
Sure.
And that really wasn't the goal. The goal was to lose the most weight and to do it in the quickest way possible. Yeah. And I always thought that of like, right now I am losing weight on a very slow, steady, I'm talking snail slow, like, where it's like, but I'm doing it in this healthy way. And there is this thing still in your mind where you're like, oh man, I can't believe this isn't faster. And I'm like, why? Because I decided that I need to be better now and I need it to be right now. And anything, I guess, in reality, though, that is worth investing in takes time. That's really worth something. But there's that thing too, is that we want it and we want it now in society.
Yeah, I think with anything that you do, whether it's like career success, whether it's, relationships, picking up a skill, learning an instrument, all of it is meant to be a practice. It's something that you do and that you commit to for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? You say that I'm going to improve at whatever this thing is for the rest of your life. I don't think people should center just the losing of the weight as like a practice necessarily, but I do think that there's so many things around your body that you could center as a practice. And I want to be clear, Ryan, like, and this is, I talk about weight all the time, like it's part of my podcast. This is not an indictment of you or anybody else out there who is intentionally losing weight. I know there are fat activists out there who go hard about people, no one should lose weight, all that. And I'm not one of those. I feel like I'm way more nuanced than that. But I will say the centering of the weight loss for me is where I feel like that's where we tend to go astray from the paths. And I think the truth is, like, whether it's you or anybody else, look in the mirror and say, what do I want for my life? And what does that look like? And it might not even be attached. It might never be attached to a number. It might always be attached to, like, I just want to always be able to touch my toes. Like, that's what I always want to be able to do.
I want my cholesterol to go down.
Correct.
Or,
it might be that. Yes.
Or, or I'm trying to help like breathing disturbances or atrial fibrillation. There are a lot of things as you get older that your body has to deal with. And, I did not have the foresight when I was younger or did not have enough. And so those are real goals now for me, and it's like, wow, okay, cool. Like if I can lose weight while doing that, that's amazing. But overall, it's like, I do want to live a longer life. And you do have to, like, for me, if I abuse food or something like that, that is not helping that end goal.
Yes. And I think like whatever, and like, again, body autonomy. So I feel like whatever you feel like you need to do for yourself, like I'm going to support, as long as you and me can treat each other with kindness and compassion. And we're not even going to like political sphere or like what I'm being like just on the basic rights. I don't want you to look at me and be like, Ronald is unworthy because I can see his belly. You know what I mean? Just like I'm not going to look at you unworthy for any of the reasons like that about your body, about your existence that we like look down on each other for. You know what I mean? We did it so long.
Look down on me because I watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Look down on me for that.
That's a good reason to look down on a person.
I mean, come on. No, I mean, you're right. But Ronald, that brings into such a larger conversation where it's like, man, that just feels like a good rule of thumb about everything in the world right now.
Yes, correct.
Is that like, man, we are looking down on each other right and left. And then, like it is just everything coming at you all the time. And like, God, that's why I feel like you're announcing your candidacy for president today on So Bad It's Good, because that's what we need. But these are the things that we need reminded of, like at the end of the day, and this doesn't go into it, it's like we're more than our bodies, there are these things called souls and personalities. I know I'm being hippy dippy here, but that's the thing.
You need it.
Well, but think about podcasting in some ways has been the best thing I've ever done in my life because I've gotten to talk to so many people like you that have like widened like the ways I think about the world. And if I didn't have that, so like to me, this is better than any sort of exercise,
Yeah. You're talking about connection. And I think if we could think about more ways to connect and like back away from ways and methods that divide us, now we are getting political here, but like that's the whole thing. If we're looking for connection, we'd all be closer to where we all want to go. But there's this intent, like this way that we focus on our divisions or invest in our divisions. And like weight is one of the central ways in which we invest in our divisions. So I feel like the more we can divest from that and invest in connection and community, the better off we all are.
So overall, this docuseries, I was happy that it exists. No, but
are we talking about a docuseries?
Sorry. Yeah. No, I was just wondering. I was happy that it exists, but to your point, I just felt like there's another docuseries here that would have been so much something that's stuck with me so much longer than this will probably stick with me. But like anything with pop culture, it's always interesting to see where we've been. And something like, I did watch this show every week, and to watch this now, and we see a lot of these things of like reminiscing on a certain pocket of pop culture. But I feel like it really suffers from not having any sort of opinion about itself.
I think there's a documentary that came out in 2016. You probably know about it. It's a 5-part documentary called OJ Made in America. It was from 30 for 30. It's 7 hours and 747 minutes. I think that became for me the gold standard of what documentaries should do, because it's a documentary that does feature a salacious story at the very middle of it. But because it's OJ Made in America, we spend a lot of time uh discovering, because it starts with the white Bronco chase, and it starts with a place where we like, oh, here's this thing that happened with OJ. But then like at large swaths of the documentary are just like, this is what was happening in LA, and this is how America was, so that when we get to this salacious story, we have so much context to understand our relationship with that story. And I feel like there are more docuseries happening now that are just about the salacious story and isn't this crazy? Isn't this crazy? Isn't this crazy? Without really spending time contextualizing it so we can actually learn something.
Yeah.
And I feel like
you
that's
learn
what's
about
here.
Race in America, which leads you to then understand why when OJ got to USC and he was the star that he was, just how big of a deal that was, because they had spent so much time teaching you about race. I mean, like, I remember, like, I've watched that thing like 6 times now through the years, and it gives me chills, because you just don't expect something to be that good, and for them to actually teach you something. So then it makes the overall swath of the story that eventually leads to murder and like, it makes it that much more powerful, because you see this fall from grace. And I mean, God, that was even nominated, if I'm not mistaken, for an Oscar. I don't even know how that happens,
if I'm not mistaken.
But like, how does it was an ESPN 30 for 30, and then it won an Oscar?
I believe it won Ezra Elman. It got a Primetime Emmy Award. That's what it got.
Oh,
and a Peabody Award.
Oh, Peabody's great. Yeah. Peabody.
Wow. Oh, no, it did. It got the best documentary feature at the 89th Academy Awards. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. But I was like, how did something that started on ESPN, maybe they put it into like 2 theaters or something to be eligible?
I have no idea how the documentary eligibility works, honestly, because I'm like, I don't watch a lot of documentaries in theaters to begin with. The last documentary I watched in the theater was like a Michael Moore documentary. That's talk about salacious. Like that's
I saw Fahrenheit 9/11 in a theater. I saw Bowling for Columbine in a theater, and I was a weird kid that went and saw Hoop Dreams as a kid in a movie theater, because
is amazing. Another great documentary.
Siskel and Ebert, I remember recommending me, and I went as a kid and saw that, and that thing blew me away as well. Okay, Ronald, I know I've taken up an hour of your time, but really quickly, what else are you watching right now? We won't get too in the woods here, but we always want to know your pop culture diet.
Okay, currently
not diet, sorry, your pop culture,
diet is what am I watching right now? I've been watching a lot of Dropout, the streaming network, formerly known as College Humor, and that's where the show Game Changer is on. I don't know if you've probably seen clips of that online. I've been watching a lot of that recently. Of course, I watched Love Island with everybody else. As a matter of fact, I watched it because you were like, "Hey, are you going to watch Love Island?" And I was like, "Yep." And I'd only watched one other season, so I stuck with it the whole time. This time,
are you going to watch the reunion this next week?
Of course. Are you kidding me? Come on, man. Like, yeah. Are you kidding me? I hate Ace. I want to see him.
To
fail.
me, that felt like a chain around my neck. I needed that show to be done. Like, it was.
I was towards the end. By the time when they voted out Jeremiah, I was like, I'm done with this, and I kept watching. But like after that, I was like, I don't think this show or the producers know what they're doing to vote that guy out. Like, this is. I don't know. The inmates are running the prison now. This doesn't work for me.
And they're making these kids so famous so fast, and the way that like nothing. I mean, you talk about like aftercare in terms of The Biggest Loser. There's going to needs to be some aftercare for these contestants at some point, because it is just not normal to get this famous this fast in terms of a social media following. That I don't know how you would ever wrap your head around it this quick.
No, they can't. And they're doing it so fast that they're not even vetting them properly enough to know that they've said racist or done racist things. Like they've dug
every
up
one of them.
Amaya's stuff. All of them.
Well, they've managed, but if Amaya stuff, they managed to really squash that down.
They did.
If you've noticed, that didn't really have any legs, weirdly enough. Yep. So I'm like, that doesn't just happen out of nowhere that all of a sudden nobody, like I remember when that broke and there were no legs. And I was like, how does that happen?
It was unusual to say the least. Like I was looking at Black Threads and I was like, see, like the sleuths in Black Threads have found this. And I like looked around. I was like, that's kind of wild that would even exist. But again, these are young people and they're talking about things they did when they were even younger, which I'm willing to forgive a lot of them for most of the things that they said if they were like a teenager or like 10 years ago. I'm like, I'm not gonna like get mad at you for what you said on Twitter at 15. Like we live in a place where we all have something like that in our past that you hope that nobody ever digs up. Because if you do, you have to account for something you said when you probably were an entirely different person. But you're right. They're not putting them in a position for success. But I will tell you one other thing I'm watching, and I just started it, is Alien Earth on Hulu. I don't.
Oh, I told the audience. No, I told the audience I want to really watch. This is a show on FX, you guys, and it's part of the I don't know what we're calling the Alien intellectual property, but there's so many Alien movies and stuff like that. But this is done by Noah Hawley, I think, who I really am a fan of his past work. So I really want to see this. I've DVR'd the first I think there's 2 episodes out now, or
yeah. Two. They're both.
So you recommend
new
it?
Ones come out tomorrow. Yes, man. Yes, I watched the first 2 episodes. My ex-girlfriend reached out and was like, "Hey, are you watching Alien Earth?" And I was like, one, I was happy to hear from her, but two,
what a way to rekindle. Just say you want to talk to Ronald. My God.
I'm like, first of all, any reason to talk to you is fine. But secondly, oh my God. So she's like, yes, I watch it. I'm watching it one at a time, trying to savor it. And it's because I subjected her. I was like, we're going to watch all of the Alien movies, all of the good ones. I'm not going to make you watch any of the bad ones. And she was hooked. I had her watch Prometheus. I had her watch Alien, the one that just came out in theaters. Yes, like I had her watch all of them.
There's a big Prometheus fan base out there. I'm not joking. There's like an undercover Prometheus, like people like that is badass. I have Prometheus on Blu-ray. So I really did you see Weapons yet?
Yes, I've seen it twice. It's a good movie.
F you, man. I keep telling the audience that I'm going to go see Weapons. I'm going to go see Weapons, and I never make it.
Go.
Oh my God.
What are you doing, man? Like, see it in the theaters. It's worth it in the theaters.
I'm addicted to podcasting, Ronald. I'm trying to put out as many podcasts as I can. So Weapons you recommend, and then music. Anything you're listening to new?
Oh my God. Chance the Rapper came out with his new album. And
wait, do you like it?
It's the best album he's done since Coloring Book. And granted, he only has 1 album in between them. But for me, like Coloring Book was one of my favorite albums I've ever listened to at all. This one, as soon as I turned it on and I had a chance, the day that it came out, the next day I went to Chicago for a day trip. This is last week. And
Did you go to Lollapalooza? Oh, no.
Well, no, but I listened to Chance the Rapper while in Chicago, which felt like just perfect synergy, but it's very good. And of course, the Clips album came out about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago. Also fantastic. These 2 old men came out and really showed out on the mic, man. They really like just wrapped circles around some of these young folks, man. It was amazing.
Okay, so Chance the Rapper album, amazing. And then what are you working on professionally?
Professionally, man, I'm working on season 3 of Wait For It. I still have my movie review podcast, Leaving the Theater. I just saw Freakier Friday, which I actually enjoyed. If you liked Freaky Friday, the 2003 one, you will this is a love letter to y'all, so you will actually like this. And yeah, man, I got some other stuff in the pot that I can't quite reveal yet, man, but I'm always working. And you know, I've been trying to get like you, doing a lot more video facing stuff. So I have a new podcast called I Don't Like That, where I talk about the things I don't like, but that's only available on Patreon until it gets good enough for me to like unveil to the world. But I'm working on things, man.
I'll put his Patreon link in the show notes, you guys, if you're interested in that. But man, that front face camera stuff, I hate. I mean, like I'm trying to do that and get comfortable with it, but that is like a muscle.
Yeah, bro, I bought one of these, like a actual digital camera from
camera.
Yeah, went to the store, like what's good for streaming, had to get some extra equipment in here, man. It's like, that's why, and I'm using this like webcam because this one requires battery power and all that. So it's like, it's a whole thing, man. Like it's a journey. And now audio only podcasting is going in a different direction now. So I'm trying to figure it out, man. I'm out here hustling like you.
What about a Biggest Loser that just teaches us to like be able to talk to a camera? Just a contest on how to make content and nothing
call it the
that
same
harms.
Thing. Yeah. Call it the Biggest Loser.
The Biggest Loser, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, is this about losing weight? Like, no, it's about gaining things. Like skills.
Dude, it is such a pleasure to have you on again. Thank you. And I hope there are many more conversations to come. Ronald Young Jr. And remember the docuseries, if you do want to check it out, Fit for TV, The Reality of the Biggest Loser on Netflix. Thanks, man.
Thank you.